Hello everybody on YouTube land and welcome to an exciting list video not for Arkham Horror the card game. Wow, what the heck? Things are so different here. Today, Mackenzie and I are going to be listing our top 5 masterminds in Marvel Legendary, a deck building game. If you haven't played the game, we're going to be gushing about it for the next 15 to 25 minutes, so that's going to be pretty fun. But before we get into the list, I want Mackenzie. Why don't you introduce yourself and what channel you're from here on YouTube?
Sure. My name is Mackenzie Franklin from SideGame LLC here in Colorado Springs, Colorado. I've met Justin through a variety of Arkham Horror videos that we've done together, as well as some Marvel Champions videos. But this one is a game that Justin plays a lot and enjoys, and that's one that I also really like. Really enjoy Marvel Legendary, so happy to be here to talk about some villains with him. And our channel in particular, we do a series of organizing videos to help you get gameplay started with the physical versions of games, as well as we focus on lots of top 10 lists. It's just something I really enjoy doing, and I really enjoy just sharing my opinions on all the games we play in general. Because our main focus, actually, aside from YouTube, is we actually run a game night hosting service where we have a giant library of games, and we come and we host, and we just have a really good time with it. So excited to talk about one of our most played games, Marvel Legends.
Nice. So when you play Marvel Legendaries, how do you most commonly play the game?
So I primarily play Marvel Legendary 2-player when I
Nice.
play. I only play with my wife. It's her favorite game of all time. So whenever we play, we have this giant box, 2 boxes that we set up. We put them on the table, lift the lids off, and then put the decks on the table and we're ready to go. We actually just did an organizing video for Marvel Legendary on the channel,
Ooh.
but I think 2-player is my favorite way to play because you get that cooperation aspect and you're also getting to play a lot more quickly, which means you're developing your deck a lot more. So
Yeah.
that's my favorite way to approach this. Yourself?
I pretty much only play solo. So that's actually going to be really interesting because I think it really changed the perspective of how we're going to be approaching these lists because solo is a completely different beast than two-handed. Oh, like two-player, sorry. Like even like
I really love the solo mode. I think it's so well done. I
It
love
is
the
very
fact that your
good.
hero
Yeah.
pool is smaller. I think that makes for a really interesting game, and you're consistently evolving yourself, which is
Yeah.
awesome. You can be a little bit more selfish with your deck building.
Yeah, and the only downside of it is that sometimes you don't get the impact because I think the two-player there's a lot of really good interaction that exists within the two-player that I do miss out on. I'm a little bit bummed about that, but like I still have so much fun just playing by myself for it. Yeah.
This is my wife's solo game of choice. If there's one that
Nice.
she's going to set up on the table, this is it. She's got
Nice.
like a high score list, and she'll consistently go to BGG and find like the most difficult setups and try to win them.
Awesome.
She's broken the game a couple of times, which is pretty funny. So I like it when she comes up with something new.
I'll need her advice because one of my honorable mentions I have not defeated, and they're there just because of that. I have not beaten them in solo
Interesting.
mode
Okay.
yet. Yeah. So why don't we dive into the list? We might as well just go right in, starting with our honorable mentions. So Mackenzie, what is your honorable mention?
My honorable mention are the Thanos set from Guardians of the Galaxy. It's one of the oldest sets, actually. I think it's the 3rd or 4th expansion. But this set itself, I want to talk about, is actually a villain group that comes with Thanos. So I think Thanos himself is fine. I think he's okay. He's just a big wall with like 24 health, and he's just kind of annoying. You're going to generally be using shards and using infinity gems to reduce his strength and his potency. But my favorite part about that entire set are the infinity gems. I think it's such a great idea to have these villains that show up that give you special abilities when you take them out. I just like this idea of gaining villains as artifacts, and you see this in other sets. We saw this in Thor, but I think it's done most well with the Infinity Gem set. So Thanos, not quite my favorite, but I really love the Infinity Gems that come with Thanos, which is why I didn't quite make my list.
Honestly, actually, I had kind of the exact same thought process in my head when I was going through it. I was like, Thanos is cool, but I was like, oh, but the Infinity Gems are kind of really what's exciting about
Yeah.
Thanos. However, what's kind of it's very interesting in. I was gonna say something. Was gonna say in solo as well because you don't have to follow the leads rule for solo. So a lot of my experience with these masterminds aren't with their villain groups. Like usually my first time I do a mastermind, I do their leads, right? But otherwise, like it's otherwise there's a bunch of villain groups I would never play. So I do enjoy bringing Infinity Gems in against some random masterminds as well. It's a good time.
It's excellent. I really like how this set plays well. It reminds me a lot of Marvel Champions, actually, where it's a set that you could just include to make a game more interesting. I really
Definitely.
like it.
Yeah. All right, I have two honorable mentions that I'm going to briefly touch on. The first one here is Wasteland Hulk. So he gets +3 attack for each of his Mastermind tactics among all players' victory piles. He always leads the Wasteland, and he has Master Strike cross-dimensional Hulk Rampage, which means you have to like reveal a Hulk card somewhere, otherwise you take a wound. This guy I have never beaten in solo. He just always finds a way to beat the crap out of me. Like, it might be because I could just phone it in and I can do an easy scheme, right? But I don't want to do that. Like, I like to choose schemes that are kind of difficult. And this guy, because he starts at 7, which is a nice, easy number to kill. Then he goes to 10, 13, and then your last kill on him is 16, which is very doable, except for the fact that unless you put Hulk in, you're going to have wounds in your deck as well, which do slow you down, especially like when you try to make your deck really thin. I know I'll beat him one day, but just this guy, I have not beaten him yet, and that he deserves this mention because of that. Because that brutal beating card, I didn't choose that on purpose. That's just what ended up happening. That was the card that I got, and it's a very apt description of what he does to me.
That's amazing. He's your nemesis.
He is. He's my nemesis. Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Now, this is a quick time to ask you a question. I want to know, when you play, what difficulty mode do you play on? Do you play on the standard? Do you implement any of the variants from Dark City? Do you use the epic masterminds, or do you what's your normal
No, I mostly
approach?
just play standard. I mostly just play standard when I play.
Okay.
Yeah. If I've beaten someone a bunch, I'll consider it. But because I have so many, and I haven't played it in a while. But when I used to, I'd play like one game a week for the channel. So there's not a lot of like variation. Like it's like I haven't played this guy in a while. Let's go back to him. I also like to make my difficulty more from taking random heroes that might not have any synergy and see if I can make that work. Yeah.
Makes sense. I enjoy that as well. We play on the epic mastermind mode, so a lot of the times we'll play on the second side of the
Yes.
cards.
Yeah.
Or if they only have a single side, like a lot of the earlier villains do, we implement horrors. So in the X-Men set,
Nice.
they came with these extra cards that just increase the difficulty. So I really enjoy that, especially because we primarily play cooperative. We don't really do the semi-co-op. So
Yeah.
it makes a difference when you're actively helping your teammate.
Hell
So
yeah.
I really enjoy that aspect of it.
So then I had a question. So you also like this is probably I know the answer is probably yes, but you also just like mixed everything together, right? Like so, or do you have them separate? Like your bystanders, is it just one big bystander deck, like from all the expansions?
Yes, it's one gigantic bystander deck, but we have taken out. So villains comes with an additional set of the no effect bystanders. So we've made it so that there's only half of each of those. Otherwise, the rate at which you were drawing them, you were only getting the basic ones. You were like never pulling the special ones. So I think that's the only thing that we've gotten rid of. But other than that, everything else is mixed together. We end up playing with everything all the time.
Yeah, because I've done that. I don't have the villains one, which is my white whale, because it's like not in print anymore.
Yeah.
But maybe one day I'll buy like a big copy on eBay. But not yet, not yet. My other honorable mention. This one's pretty quick. It's Galactus. He's just scary, and like when you play solo and you can only rely on yourself, you really need to work hard. One thing I really like for the masterminds that I've chosen are the masterminds that, for me, that require, they either have like scalability. I really like scalability. Like I don't like you can go against Red Skull, crush him, have a good day, and be like, yay, I've done it, right? But I like the masterminds that are big or have some like interaction or get big as you play them. I think it's a little bit more engaging otherwise.
I agree with you fully. I like that, especially during the early turns of the game, you may seize that opportunity to knock them down while they're really small, and then throughout the game it gets more difficult. So you have that trade-off of, ooh, do I construct my deck now, or do I fight them now? I like that. It's a great choice.
Yeah, definitely. All right, well, let's go into our number 5s, starting with yours. Who's yours?
Number 5 is Apocalypse. He's from the Dark City expansion, and he is extremely straightforward. And I think that's why I like him so much. He's a pretty nice blank slate, and you can introduce him to a lot of other people, and he doesn't give any overwhelming mechanisms. That being said, he's quite challenging, especially if you add a couple of horrors with him. He has 2 different win conditions, and I think that's a big standout here. He's always going to lead the 4 horsemen and then give them extra buffs. So Apocalypse really is just big numbers. And then he wins by either completing the scheme or if 4 of his 4 horsemen have escaped or are in the city. And I think that's really cool. I think it's just escaped, actually. So, but that's a really cool secondary win condition. It gives you more things to manage, more things to work around. And I really enjoy this. It just makes a lot of sense, and it's very clean the way it's implemented. And the last thing is his Master Strike is pretty devastating. Based on, it doesn't matter how many people you're playing with, you essentially lose a turn, and it can be very brutal. However, this is not going to affect you in the early game, which is also something I like, because it's not going to totally shut you out and make it so you don't really have a chance of building up and defeating him eventually. So I think there's some great positives here in his simplicity, but also his strength and just overall the way that he plays.
Yeah. I'm going to just jump in right here because Apocalypse is also my number 5 on this
Hey,
list. That was
awesome.
just a nice, convenient thing. And I'm basically just going to echo what you say here, too.
Yeah.
He's scary. And as I said, I like the ones that are scary because it's stressful. Like when the 4 horsemen start entering the city and you're like, wow, this thing has so much attack and we need to kill it or else we die. And it's a nice little like sub-objective that is what makes the game fun, right? Because like managing the scheme is fun, attacking the mastermind's fun, but as soon as you add one more thing, it becomes like exponentially more fun. His
totally
Master Strike, as you said, like is super fair in the early game, can be very bombastic in the late game. But one thing I actually really like about his Master Strike is he's basically putting your turn on layaway. So like he's punching you, and then he's like, yeah, but next turn you can punch me really hard. That's the deal, right? Which can also be really bad, but also has the chance to be really good. Yeah. I feel like it's
You have
less,
all your good cards coming up at one time. It's awesome.
yeah. I feel like it's less painful in solo first because you just like I think you just get to your turn so much quicker from it, right? There's only like one card, which I imagine I'm like, I don't know. This is probably math that actually doesn't even check out. But I like his Master Strike for the reasons you said, and also because it's the traditional Master Strike where you lose cards in your hand, which I actually greatly prefer to taking a wound. If a game gives me a wound, I'm like, ah. But it just feels fine early on and bad, but can still be good later on. I think it's just really good design. Just really good design on this guy from top to bottom.
Totally agree. And the funny thing about his effect of boosting the 4 horsemen, the 4 horsemen are no joke. They've got some nasty effects when they show up. So I really like that it's made them just that more of a threat. It's really cool.
Yeah. All right. Your number 4 is...
Number 4 is probably the goofiest choice on this whole list, and he's from one of the sets that just doesn't really make sense in the entire Marvel Legendary Universe, and that's Vulture. So this is from Spider-Man Homecoming, which is one of the only sets to use stills from the films, and it's super jarring. It looks super awkward in contrast with all of the different comic imagery and whatnot. And that's honestly one of the reasons I really enjoy playing this is just how goofy it is. In addition, Vulture's his Vulture Tech villain group that he brings with him is literally just body parts of Vulture. It's like his feet, his arm, his other foot, his wing, his backpack. And it's so funny when you're playing. You're like, it's his foot. His foot's over there, but his arm's over there. Hilarious, because they're on a city, right?
Yeah.
So I just imagine him flying around or stretching really far, and it cracks me up.
Mr. Fantastic became the Vulture, yeah. That
hilarious.
I don't have this set myself, but I do like that mental image, and I also like if in solo, or just like even when you're playing just in 2-player, and they're your randomly rolled villain group, like, oh god, it's Vulture's foot! Just suddenly appeared in the city. That's really funny.
Great. If you play with his other villain group, the one that comes in that box, it's literally just his crew from the movie. And so it's just a bunch of people, and there's not a lot of good action shots of them. Yeah. So they're just standing there like this, and it's so funny because you'll just watch them moving around, and it's like, oh my gosh, what am I playing against? So aesthetics, purely fantastic. But he also has Striker, which is an ability that gives him more strength the more Master Strikes that show up.
Oh,
So
cool.
that's one other great thing that happens. He does have that scalability very similar to Wasteland Hulk, except it's not whenever you defeat him. And then his Master Strike is a little bit interesting. They're going to be putting wounds onto all the HQ spaces. And whenever you take that card, you're also going to take that wound. So this gives you some limited options when it comes to purchasing. And it's got that thing you hate, getting wounds into your deck. And that's going to be preventing you from maybe going down different paths or maybe pushing you to take strategies you might not take because you just don't want to take that additional wound cost. So do you go for synergies that are clearly displayed, or do you go for the options that are already available with less of the immediate drawbacks? I really like him. I think he makes a lot of sense. He's got some great choices here with that HQ system, but he's also just extremely goofy, and the aesthetics, I love him.
Yeah, that winged assault thing, it's an interesting Master Strike. I like it because it does provide different gains or KOs a hero from the HQ. That provides some interesting decision points because I don't know about you, but at a certain point in the game, I'm done buying cards, right? Because I'm like,
Yeah.
my deck is complete. So like this one's kind of like the inverse of Apocalypse, right? Where like it can be very oppressive early on in the game, and it's can be really just nothing in the late game. Except then it still has the Striker thing to kind of balance that. So I think that's some really nice bit there. Yeah, because in solo mode, this is just you, right? Like, and if you're playing co-op, like pure cooperative, that also is bad. If you're playing competitive cooperative, oh, take it, Mike. You can have all these wounds. That's okay. Yeah. My number 4 is Mr. Sinister. So he gets +1 attack for each bystander he has, and he always leads the Marauders. His Master Strike is Mr. Sinister captures a bystander. Then each player with exactly 6 cards reveals a red hero or discards cards equal to the number of bystanders Mr. Sinister has. So this guy, and also my next choice, they live in this spot because bystanders are fun. And in solo, you actually don't get easy access to bystanders unless you're playing a hero that interacts with bystanders, right? So like, unless I choose one of my 3 heroes to be a hero that like rescues bystanders, I will only, on average, see 1 bystander a game, right? Because that's how many are put into the deck most of the time. So unless my scheme adds them, or like I have a person that interacts, I don't get to play with bystanders a lot. And I like bystanders because their effects it's basically like a loot box. What could this be when you have all of them mixed together? So he interacts with bystanders, he lets you save bystanders, and I just like that. And he has that thing that I also enjoy, which is scalability. His Master Strike is a little bit lacking, right? Because it's very easily counterable, and also like if you're just good, you can just like basically it does nothing. But the thing is, I really like bystanders, and in solo, I'm not gonna play Black Widow every time because I believe she has a bunch of bystanders. Like she works bystanders, she really is good at saving them. But that's why I really enjoy Mr. Sinister.
Yeah, if you want to pump up those victory point numbers, you better play Black Widow or some character who's just grabbing bystanders consistently.
Yeah.
Who are your favorites when it comes to gathering bystanders? Who are your go-tos?
Realistically, the Black Widow is the one I can think off the top of my head, and I think also Falcon does sidekicks. He is. I think just Black Widow is the only one I can really go because I if I want to play a bystander game, I do approach it as a mastermind or a scheme that can work with that. That's usually how I approach that. Maybe but I remember really enjoying Hercules, and I don't know if that's because he was strong or if he interacted with bystanders or sidekicks in some way. I could just be like, for some reason, I just see him in the back of my mind. I could be completely wrong.
That's a good question. I'm not sure. He might be.
Yeah.
Saving people? That's something heroes do, right?
That's something heroes do. I have the page open. Let me quickly look it up. I need to see.
Okay.
Hercules, right. He was in.
I do want to speak to you really quick. What you mentioned about bystanders. The solo mode, you only get 1 bystander in that deck, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's insane. And then when it comes to multiplayer with 2 players, you only get 2. So it's not like a huge difference, but the deck size it's growing. I guess not dramatically when you change the player counts. Once you get to those higher player counts, though, then you're going to be getting up to you're getting a lot of bystanders to the deck, which is nice. And I totally agree with you. I think it's really fun. They are mini loot boxes, and the more sets you get, the more ridiculous those effects on those bystanders become.
Yeah.
There's even some fun promo cards of the more recent ones that implement the keywords from the newest expansions, and I really enjoy those.
Oh, cool. So people watching who were astutely watching might have noticed there were some spoilers accidentally while I was looking through the Hercules cards. But yeah, Hercules does rescue bystanders. He actually has a lot of things that I really like. So Hercules, he KOs cards, he draws cards, and his yellow attacks. And if you played another yellow, you defeat a villain, you rescue a bystander. So
Ooh, what a guy!
My favorite 3 words in this game are draw a card. What about you?
KO one of.
KO, yeah, that's up there
KO
too.
one
Yep,
of.
KO, draw a card.
Can
Yeah.
be anything.
Yeah.
And discard. Let's go.
Yeah. Hell yeah. All right. So we had some brief spoilers, but we'll now get into number 3. What is your number 3?
All right, so my number 3 is Dark Phoenix. Dark Phoenix presents a extremely challenging mastermind with terrible scalability, multiple win conditions, an advanced mastermind side on the back that just ramps up the difficulty even more by putting out horrors. And we find Dark Phoenix to be our go-to character if we found a squad that's just insanely powerful. Dark Phoenix usually is able to challenge that, and I really like this because this allows us to play some broken Marvel Legendary. I love this concept in games when you're able to find a villain that matches the output strength of the heroes you're using. Yeah. So that's why I really like Dark Phoenix. It presents you with a super strong mastermind that gets progressively difficult, but it's also not extremely punishing, and it doesn't prevent you from playing the game. There are some villains that I've played that maybe they'll decrease your hand size or things like that, and that just makes the game a little bit unfun for me. So I don't really like it when I don't have choices in the game, but Dark Phoenix presents you with a terrible conundrum, but you have the options and the time to actually make choices for that. So she always leads the Hellfire Club, which has some nasty effects of increasing and becoming new masterminds. A Master Strike that's going to have you getting rid of all the type of one color in the hero deck, so you're limiting your options there. Super terrifying. And then the Phoenix wins if the hero deck runs out. Love this. I love the multiple win conditions, and I love that your options become limited as the game goes on, making it more and more tense and more difficult to create these combos in your deck. Ugh, so cool. What a well done mastermind, and truly an epic boss.
Yeah, when I was reading through all the masterminds while I was making this list, she seems really fun. I've only played her once, and I beat her my first time, so I'm like, I'm gonna just sit on this for a while. I'm just gonna have her just like exist in this box for a bit because I was like, I'll get back to her eventually. But so that's why she didn't make my list, because I've only played against her once. But yeah, no, she has all that stuff that like copy paste what I said about Apocalypse, right? Apart from the scalability, at least on this side of her, right? It's scary, it's hard with an alternate win condition, right? Like that's once again just ticks all the boxes for what I want from a mastermind. She's really good, she's really fun, and she's scary.
And the horror ability on the backside is absolutely bonkers, because every time she clears something, she'll also play one of those. And the horrors are no jokes. Like some of them go in your discard pile and they're infections, and every time you draw it, everyone gets a wound. Some of them will just decrease your hand size, which I hate, but hey, at least you got a couple of turns in. Some of them will just increase the strength. Someone will give the abilities of other masterminds. So like that Wasteland Hulk ability is literally on one of those the horror cards. Oh, it's so scary. Love it.
That's exciting too, because that's on like the epic side, as you were saying. That's a very random type of scalability, which can be really, really, really cool, really fun too.
It's fun, it's challenging, and it's just something I really enjoy trying out a really strong team against.
My number 3, like Mr. Sinister, is Madeline Pryor. Her bystanders captured by her are demon goblin villains with 2 attack, and you can fight them to rescue them as bystanders. You can't fight her while she has any demon goblins. She always leads Limbo, and her Master Strike is she captures 4 bystanders. If she already has bystanders before that, then each player gains a wound. Now, this is pretty easy to work around because you just have to like deal 8 attack over like probably realistically 2 or 3 turns to solve that problem. But what she does is a lot of things that I really like, which makes the game more engaging. She has bystanders, which I can rescue, which allow me to interact with that thing without having to build my hero pool around that. But what she also does is when you're playing solo, a dead turn hurts a lot more than a turn in and a dead turn in multiplayer, right? Because if you draw 2 attack
The
and
classic hand, 4 stars and 2 strikes, right?
yeah, or alternatively, even like the one that hurts even more, like you somehow have like 3 attack and only 3 money, and you're like, oh, this is not good at all. What she does now is that she gives you something to do on those dead turns, which is just like quietly really engaging as like when you're playing, because now you can be like, I attack this thing, oh my god, it's the bystander that lets me draw a card, now I can actually like buy something else. Or alternatively, it's the card that lets you KO something, right? Like it gives you like a something to do on those down turns, which can make it really good. Sometimes it's just a bystander that does nothing. Sometimes now in my bystander pool, it's one that turns into a villain in the city, and I'm like, what the heck? What? I just started playing with this. I don't even know that this existed. But it's just really really fun. And then she kind of has a sense of scalability because you can't attack her when she's fighting goblins, when she has goblins, which means that she ultimately really has like 18 attack after a master strike, right? So it's just but it's good attack because killing a goblin is easy. It's no surprise too that one of my favorite schemes is the one that adds bystanders that are like demon goblins that you can also kill and get their value from. I like that mechanic in solo a lot.
Agree, and I think you made a lot of sense there with like just tiny micro powers and abilities in the form of those bystanders. There's a lot to love. This mechanism reminds me a lot of other deck building games and other schemes in this one. Reminds me a lot of like the Goblin in Ascension or the Cultist in Ascension. You can just consistently punch
Yes.
it to get extra points, so you never feel like you're wasting things, which is nice. And then the other thing it reminds me of is the hidden witnesses mechanism in the noir expansions. Instead of using the stars, you're using the strikes. So I like that you're always never wasting something. So I think this is just a good feeling all around. I think you summarized it well here.
Sick. All right, what is your number 2?
And my number 2 goes to Ultron from the Ant-Man expansion. He is awesome. I think it reminds me of a really interesting form of Dark Phoenix, actually, with a little bit more choice on the player's side. So the way it works is every time you get a Master Strike, you're going to be revealing a gray hero, or you're going to put a hero from your discard pile, so it's taking it from your future plays, and then put it onto his advanced tactics threat analysis pile. And then for each of the colors of cards in that threat pile, Ultron gets empowered. Empowered means it gets extra strength for each card of that color that's face up in the HQ. I think this is so much fun, and the epic mastermind version of this forces you to give them a card. So I really like that choice here. Just like you mentioned earlier, it doesn't hurt that much during the early game because hopefully you only have those gray cards before that first turn. But as soon as you buy a single card, it's going to suck. Hopefully you don't have it. He is going to grow, and you have to be very mindful in the cards that you're giving him and the cards that you're taking, because he could snatch any of them at a moment's notice. And I like how he scales, and you have ways to counteract that scalability, because his strength derives from the cards that are in the HQ. Now, this can be an issue if you've chosen all of one color for your entire game, because then all of a sudden he has a million strength, and he can get empowered multiple times by these cards. So if he has multiple of the same color, he's getting multiple strength from that color, which is terrifying. But you have some cool ways of saying, okay, I know that he gets stronger from this, so I can use my stars to buy these things and put them in my deck. It may dilute my strategy or my plays, but it'll help us defeat him in the future turns. There's some great interaction with this, and I just think it's a great way to build around a villain, as well as have forms of actually combating them without being something that's extremely punishing or powerful, but also has the mastermind side if you are looking for that. So I think this is a great choice for any player who's excited to play some Marvel Legendary.
Yeah, and I think also what's nice about Ultron is he's not like, I think he's a great mid difficulty, right? Like you've played Red Skull, he has like, this guy has 7 attack. I've beaten him. So like you're like, what's the next step? Dirty. Yeah, get to Ultron, right? Like, and I think that's really good because, as you said, there's a lot of strategy you can do. Sometimes it just whiffs, and you get like, because you have a gray hero in your hand, or your discard pile is just gray heroes, right? I know I said gray hero twice, but I mean tech hero, but to me they're both grays in my mind because we have no rules and consistency here on playing board games. We just go with what we call them in the moment. It also helps that like gray heroes are my favorite. Mr. Fantastic and the Punisher are 2 of my favorite heroes, and they come in a lot, and then we're just like, oh, okay, I can fight you, Ultron, with this. And I have a memory with Ultron where I bought a card that KO'd, and I'm like, all right, I just got to get that. And then it was the only card in my discard pile before I had a chance to KO. And then I felt Ultron was laughing at me. Yeah, yeah, that was him grabbing my card there. Being like, you want that? No, okay, I'll take it.
Oh, goodness. And it makes for some good moments like that, right? And I believe that some of his Mastermind tactics have ways that you can retrieve cards from his threat analysis pile. So I think that's also a great interaction point. Getting back those cards. Did you ever retrieve what was stolen?
Yeah, it's actually something we haven't really talked about here, but one thing that I really like about the designs that they do with these Masterminds is that their tactics work so beautifully with the Mastermind. Like, there's a lot of really good stuff that exists there.
It gives a lot of creativity. You don't just have a single card. You have a whole set of cards to really make some creative choices with.
Definitely. My number 2 over here is a nice simple one. It's Kingpin. This guy's here because... I'll get to his text box in a second. But this guy's here kind of like Wasteland Hulk. This guy eluded me for a long time in solo. Just because I don't even know how to explain it. Because he reads really easily, right? Like, you kill him with money and attack, and you only need 13. But he just always found a way to beat me. Like, it took me, like, I think legitimately, like, 4 plays until I got a win over Kingpin in solo. And, like, once again, this is, like, not even, like, it could depend entirely on the scheme that you're doing, the villain group you get, the draw in solo. Like, solo is so swingy. But this guy, so I have a lot of fond memories playing him, and I like playing him, and I'll read his card, then I'll get to some more reasons why I think he's just kind of, like, good and fun to play against. He has Bribe, which means you can use attack and money to beat him. He always leads the Street of New York, which have a bunch of bribe cards on them. And then Master Strike, each player reveals a Marvel Knight hero or discards their hand and draws 5 cards. So it's effectively just a discard a card, like really when it just brings you down to 5. However, it hurts even more when you have a good hand. And he's like, bye-bye, like, see you later. It's kind of like just like a nice little rubbing salt in the wound. But what I like about this guy is that the whole bribe mechanic means that it's very hard for you to have an ultimately dead turn, right? Because your things can add up to be so high. I don't know how, as I said, how this guy beat me so many times, but I'm really, like, I'm running like a 20% win rate against Kingpin in solo.
Oh my god. This is amazing. This might be the greatest conversation piece. I think you said it well, though. I really like that you're always able to use everything when it comes to bribe, which actually presents an interesting choice, especially during the early game, because do you spend your stars to build your deck or to actually be aggressive and hit things?
Yeah.
So I like that there's always a choice, though, for picking up stars. So it never feels bad to continuously get that recruit power.
Yeah.
You always have a place to channel it. And generally, I think the stats are weighted more heavily towards stars.
Yeah, because I think...
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, most of them have, like, I think, like, in the Streets of New York, they're, like, 6 to 8, which makes sense. Because, like, this guy really, he's, like, an 8 attack hero, and there's an extra 5 that you can put stars into. Yeah.
Exactly. So I think it's really cool. It's a nice balancing factor for these stronger minions, but you need to have that option to take them out. Yeah. You can even see that in, like, the small henchman groups with the Mafia goons. They've got 4 strength as opposed to the 3, but they have the bribe tag.
Yes.
Like, so it's a cool choice. I like it.
Yeah. Stupid Kingpin. I'll have to go back and watch my videos to see what happened.
What went wrong?
Yeah.
You got to do like a reaction video or something like that.
I think a big thing too, though, is like I'm very stubborn when it comes to Marvel Legendary. Like I hate Maria Hill. I don't even bring her out of the box sometimes.
What?
Yeah, I don't.
All right, you got to get that shield. The Shield Agent expansion. It comes with an entire set of people that you shuffle into the Maria Hill deck, and now they have abilities.
Oh, okay, that's good.
What you got to do. It's super good. Like that's a sleeper expansion. No one talks about it because the heroes, honestly, not that good. But the Shield officers that you get to shuffle in changes the game up. It's awesome. I love it.
Yeah, because like I don't know. It's just because like I'm actively stubborn, and I probably could look at it, but I look at her and I'm like, that's a Shield Agent right there. That's a Shield Trooper. Like. I don't want Maria Hill in here. So, like, I prioritize heroes, which probably is why also Kingpin can just... Because probably the correct thing is to just grab a Maria Hill or 2 and just, like, get some value. But I'm, like, too stubborn. Way too stubborn.
I'm totally with you. That's one. It never feels good to actively pick one, but sometimes you're like, best option probably is Maria Hill.
Yeah. Yeah, like even going up against the Maria Hill Mastermind, I'm like when she puts or like there's like a
Yeah.
scheme where you have to like rescue Maria Hills, and I'm like, these are wounds. Like my mind feels like I'm getting wounds put in my deck, even though they're actually not. Oh, that's funny. All right, let's go to our number ones, starting with yours.
All right. So my number one is a very odd pick, but I think that he is one of the best masterminds in general. This is MODOK. So MODOK comes from the World War Hulk set, and he's a two-sided mastermind that has transformed. So not an epic versus a regular, he has transformed. So as you play against him, he's going to flip from side to side each time that he's wounded or each time that he performs a Master Strike. Now the first side here, though, is the reason that I really like him, and that has to do with his printed passive ability. All cards with Outwit require 4 different colors instead of 3. So Outwit is a mechanism from this set where if you want to get a bonus effect, you need to reveal 3 cards that have different colors on them. And I think this is a great mechanism because it's going to push you into having not necessarily super synergistic abilities. Generally, you want to have matching colors because that'll allow you to trigger a lot of really repeated bonus effects. But in this case, you want to have a nice variety of colors. Now, MODOK makes it so that the Outwit condition is actually difficult to achieve because having 3 colors in the normal style of this, super easy to do. Outwit never seemed like a challenge, but with 4, it actually is something that you need to build towards, and I think that's really cool. It enhances one of the keywords that's present in that game. So I love that his passive ability makes Outwit more challenging and more interesting. The other thing that he has is his reverse side. As soon as he reverses, he can only be attacked with stars instead of strikes, and this flips the game on its head. This is so cool because you have to be consistently managing both of these resources. You have to go into both because the first side has to require strikes, and the other side requires stars. This is such a great twist, but this is also, on this side, going to make it so your Outwit cards only require 3 again. So all of a sudden, you become more powerful in order to combat this strength on this side. I love this, and I love the constant flipping. The mastermind tactics are going to have him switching as well, so attacking him in the middle of your turn is going to be a different choice that you have to make, and then maybe you're setting up your opponent. Oh, I've got a lot of stars. Can you take him out this turn? Yes, I can. That way he gets that flip, but then you might get a mastermind strike that happens, and it'll flip again, and you're like, oh, I ruined everything. There's a lot of great things that can happen. He enhances one of the mechanisms that I really enjoy from this set, and he's just overall a really fun mastermind as he's constantly switching. Great mastermind, great challenge, and just a lot of fun. This is MODOK, my number one.
Yeah, so as I was telling you before we started recording, World War Hulk is the only was the big box that I don't have, and I just got it in the mail last week. So I'm excited to crack it open and start playing some stuff from it. And then MODOK seems really fun. Like I can see why he's your favorite because it's like dancing, right? Like it's constantly changing. The threat changes. The fact that like he's easier to outwit here because he's kind of like even a bit more confident, right? Like because that's kind of like how I get the vibe from it. Like this is the plotting MODOK, this is the overconfident MODOK, and like he doesn't care much about outwitting you. He's kind of just like I'm all powerful. It's really cool. I also really like MODOK. I've always liked his look because he's so weird, right? Like a lot of villains in comic books, they're just people. MODOK, you're like, he's a person, but his face is huge. Like, what the frick's going on? I think I've always liked him, so I'm excited to play him because I think I'm going to love him just as much as you do. He just seems like a winner.
He's got the entire package, and I hope that you have a blast with the World War Hulk expansion overall. There's some amazing characters. My favorite hero is in this set. I'll let you try to figure that out as you play them, but there's some gold in this set, and I think that all of the masterminds in here are great ideas. They all have this transforming mechanism,
Nice.
and it's a lot of fun because, as you mentioned, it's very thematic and flavorful based on which side they turn to. So I think you stated it perfectly there.
Sweet. All right, my number one, get ready for magic. It's Mysterio!
Oh my gosh, okay.
So he always leads the Sinister Stick 6, and he's very simple. His Master Strike is just shuffle this Master Strike into Mysterio's face-down Mastermind Tactics. That card becomes a Mastermind Tactic worth 9. It might be 6. I don't know. It might be 9. I don't know. But I wrote this down this morning while I was getting ready for this. But I like Mysterio because in solo, he is a time he's time. Like he demands that you are efficient, right? Like you have to not only like in solo, you lose very quickly because your master strikes, they surge, so they're going to turn into another card, right? I believe, and yeah. So your master strikes turn into another card, which means that you effectively have 5 less cards in the deck than you think you do. So then Mysterio, he demands that those 5 less cards are now 8 additional damage, right? So he demands that you solve his problem, the scheme, the city, and then also the time that is now like running out, because you probably realistically have to deal an extra 24 to 32 damage against Mysterio. And then when you get a Master Strike that's from his tactics, you're like, this isn't anything, right? Like, this is just, like, because I don't care about points. I'm playing solo, right? Like, I don't care about my score. And then as well, he has a tactic, I believe, that if it's not his final tactic, it shuffles back in. So you have even more time pressure that you need to, because you're like, all right, now I have to do another 8. Like, you get a great reward. I think you get like 4 bystanders or something. Like, you get a good chunky reward. That reward,
It's 6 bystanders,
6?
I think. Something crazy.
God. That, yeah, because to match the victory, that makes sense. Yeah, because you killed him. That is awful if you don't have the special bystanders. Admittedly, that's like, you're like, whoopee, right? But as soon as you get the special bystanders, that actually can cascade into a ton of cool stuff. Like, a simple draw a card, the news reporter bystander, could turn into another card that draws cards, and then you're just going. But I love Mysterio because he's really easy. Like, he's actually, like, easy to kill. He's just 8. But he scales in a very crazy way. Like, if you look at this compared to Wasteland Hulk from earlier, he starts at 7 and goes to 10. That's spooky. But this guy on a Master Strike effectively adds +8 to his attack, right? Like, for 1 attack. And it's just like, he's just basically like demands it, and his demands don't stop. And it's really fun and engaging because it's scary in a different way. Apocalypse is scary because he'll kill you. Galactus is scary because he'll kill the city. Dark Phoenix is scary because she kills the hero deck. Mysterio is scary because he demands that you solve so many problems. And then if you solve it the wrong way, you're just back at like where you were at the start of that turn. So that's why I really like him.
So scary is not the word I would pick for Mysterio. I would pick the word annoying.
Yeah.
I find, so that mastermind tactic you described of, oh, it's not the last one, get some bystander, it sucks to suck. Like, those show up in so many different masterminds, and I hate it when I see those. It feels so bad every time. And then when we play a new one, when one comes out, and we see that that's one of the mastermind tactics, we're always like, it's a Mysterio. Yeah. It's like, we consistently refer back to this card because it started this trend of just being annoying, just die already. And sometimes you just lose because you get unlucky by hitting that same mastermind tactic over and over again. It's just, it's infuriating. Man. So I can see how he presents a huge challenge, and you're spot on with your efficiency. You have to be efficient, and this just really puts pressure on you to do so. Yeah. So good choice. Number 1, the most frustrating in my mind, Mysterio.
Yeah. Yeah, no. Yeah, I like. I have a lot of fondness of it in when I've played with him, and it's just it's frustrating, but I love the flavor of it. He's like, haha, you idiot, you hit the wrong one. Yeah, yeah, it's great.
Love it. Great pick.
Sweet. Well, those were our top 5 masterminds. I had a blast. That was a great. Actually, I gotta play this game. I haven't played it in probably 8 months. I gotta play it again. Well, I got World War Hulk. Now I gotta.
You're gonna have so much fun. You gotta try. Do you want to know my favorite hero?
I think you might have told me before. I think you might have told me, but I'm gonna play it, and then I'll see if I can pick it out, because I think you might have. Because I remember he's not a normal hero. He has like a weird name. I remember that much.
Super awkward.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I'm excited to crack into that.
All of them have that transform mechanism baked into the cards, and it's just so much fun. I love that idea of not only upgrading your deck by buying things, but upgrading the specific cards. It just feels so good to do so. So you're going to do that consistently.
So is it like you take a card and switch it with the hero when they transform? So it's like Ascension has that mechanic like that, and it is very fun. Yeah.
the transform deck that comes. Well, each of the heroes that has transform cards comes with transform deck cards, and they just go on a separate side. And so when you play a card, sometimes it'll say switch this with this card. And the
Nice.
coolest thing about transform is when you do it, it goes into your hand immediately. You can play it right away, so you get like two
Oh,
cards
nice.
on turn.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
It's
That's cool.
so good to play. I love it.
Sweet. Awesome.
Excellent.
Well,
Any other things barely missed the list for you?
I don't think so. I don't think so. I like Mole Man just because he's so easy. I remember
Yes.
there was a time when I kept losing to like Galactus and Apocalypse, and I was like, all right, time. I need a win. I'm gonna go up against Mole Man. So he almost made the list, but then I was like, I can't put Mole Man on here because he's just so easy. Yeah.
Galactus actually is not that big of a deal for me. The more I've played against like anything with Cosmic Threat, the new Fantastic Four expansion and the space one with the new Guardians, there's a lot of Cosmic Threat in there, and it's just not that threatening. It feels really easy to take them out because there's just so many debuffs you can give them by just revealing cards. I don't know. It just is not that scary. It seems scary because there's like a printed 20 on the card.
Yeah,
but whenever
it's
you're
really realistically like 12 most of the time.
Yeah,
which
exactly.
is very manageable. Yeah, or it's
That's how I feel
it's
about
even
Cosmic
more.
Threat.
Yeah, no. Sweet. Well, this was really fun. Do you want to just shout out your channel one more time for everyone who's watching?
Sure, we're over at SideGame LLC. Once again, we appreciate your support. But playing board games, this channel is amazing. And thank you again, Justin, for having me. This was a fantastic list. Great idea.
Yeah. Well, sweet. So for everyone who's watching, if you want to see more Marvel Legendary, comment, let me know in the comments. If you want to see Mackenzie and I go on join together on another list, I think the next time it's on his channel, but we'll eventually be back here. But if you want to see more, let us know in the comments because we'll keep making it. We always enjoy making our lists together. Yeah. So thanks so much for watching. Have a good one, and as always, GG's.